Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Welcome to the next episode. I believe this is episode 17. This episode is entitled, He is Sick. For those of you guys who have no idea who I am Candy Sincerity Johnson. And we have been documenting so much of our lives, Sean and I's lives together. And so this episode is specific to me. So I told Sean, I said, I'll take this episode. I'll do this solo. But before we get into this episode, I know you guys been waiting. It's been a few days since we've been with you. Before we get into this episode, let's recap. The last time we were together, we did a Q&A video. We allowed you guys to ask us questions, anything from the beginning, how we met, to anything in between, the wedding, the marriage, our fertility journey, us having the kids, infidelity, all of the things. You guys had an opportunity to literally unzip our head, ask us any questions, and we give you an answer. But this next episode is very specific to me. The last thing that happened that you guys know of was Sean did her solo episode where she talked about August. And obviously with the title August, you know, the August incident happened in August of that year. Well, over the next several months thereafter, all the rest of August, which was just a few days because it happened at the end of August. So all of the rest of August, all of September, October, November, December through the holidays, we were still in the rebuilding phase. We were rebuilding emotionally because obviously there had been a lot of lost trust. We were rebuilding physically because anytime there's trauma, most of the time, if you're like me, you're not eating right. If you are eating, you're eating very unhealthy. You're snacking. You're not taking care of yourself. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't drinking my water on a regular basis. We just had a lot of physical, rebuilding to do. We were rebuilding spiritually. We were rebuilding spiritually as well. And most importantly, we were rebuilding financially. So all of those things were happening all throughout the rest of that year. Well, here comes the first of the year. And here comes the very next storm. Here comes the very next storm. So by the first of the year, around January-ish, I start to get these phone calls. And the phone calls were coming from my father. And it wasn't uncommon. My dad and I had this very strange relationship where I would hear from him, he would pop up, and then I don't hear from him for a few years, and then I would hear from him, and then, we kind of just did that thing, and that's how my childhood was. I would go years without hearing from him. And then he would pop up, and then, round and round we would go. Well, prior to this January stint of him reaching out, I had a conversation with him that didn't go well. I'm not going to go into the details of what happened and what was said, but the conversation did not go well. To the point where when he started reaching out to me in January, I would look at the phone. Let me see. I would look at the phone like I'm looking at this piece of paper, and I'd be like, I ain't gonna be able to do it. And then I would keep moving, right? Because in my mind, historically, when things went left, there was never a conversation about, oh, I said this, oh, I did this, I'm sorry, I will, talk through how maybe that made you feel, any of that. There was never any of that. So, you know how you are in January, new year, new me, girl. Anybody who interrupted my peace gotta go. You know how we do in January. We real rah-rah in January. So, I'm looking at the phone like, yes, wait, I ain't gonna be able to do it, right? So I'm ignoring his calls and ignoring his calls and ignoring his calls. I start to notice that I'm getting more calls from numbers that I don't recognize. I was also ignoring those because at the time, financially, we were in a bad spot. So, girl, I wasn't answering the phone. If you wasn't locked in my phone, you wasn't getting me on the phone, girl. I don't know if you're the collection agency. I don't know. Girl, I don't know who you are, okay? So you weren't getting me on the phone. One day I get a call from a local phone number where I recognized the first 3 numbers, and I said, I think this might be somebody that I know. I answer the phone, and it's him. So now you got me on the phone. Okay? Now you got me on the phone. So I answer the phone call, and it's him. So, girl, I'm not going to lie to you, girl. My eyes rolling all up in the top of my head, girl. Oh, my God, here we go again. You know, what do you want type of thing, right? And he proceeds to tell me how much he loves me. He proceeds to tell me how he want to see me. He proceeds to tell me how he want to see the twins. And we talked and talked and talked. And as I look back on that conversation, there was something on the inside of me that said, record this call. Record the call. Now, I don't record my calls. I don't record my calls. Years and years ago, I used to have this app on my phone that would record all of my calls because that's when I was an insurance agent and I would take calls from the car where we had to take care of business for our clients. So I would literally be driving to and from the office, and then I would take calls, business calls, and I had the app to record the call so that if I needed to go back into the system to make adjustments to coverage or to notate a file about a specific conversation about something we were going to do in the future, I had that to pull from, right? But that was years ago. So I didn't have a reason to have this app still on my phone at this time. And I didn't have it. So I said, you know what? I said, the business phone is sitting right here. I'm on the phone with Daddy. The business phone is right here. What I did, best friends, was I recorded it in Messenger. You know how you can send a voice note to people? I recorded bits and pieces of the conversation in Messenger. And I'm glad I did, because I have that call to, if I dig deep enough, I could probably find pieces of it. I have that call to reflect on. Well, the call ended up being every bit of like 3 hours. During the call, he said, Candy, I've been sick. And I said, well, Daddy, that's not uncommon. You've been sick before, right? You've had issues with your liver before. I kind of just brushed it off because we've had these conversations before, right? And so he said, well, I know, babe, but it's different. The doctor is saying it's not looking good. And so I'm like, huh? So he tells me, he said, well, I tell you what, your brother Eric that live in Michigan, the one who I share a birthday with, March 21st, shout out to E. Your brother has a daughter, your niece, his daughter is playing not in Michigan, but she's playing in a tournament in Illinois. So I'm driving over from Tennessee to see her play in Illinois. And I think it would be cool if we all could get together and spend some time that weekend at her tournament. So reluctantly, I'm like, I don't know, Dad. I'm kind of like, I don't know, right? And so he's like, okay, well, think about it. So by the end of the conversation, he was asking about my mom. How's your mom doing? She's doing okay. How's your granny? How's your family? He's naming everybody by name, specifically by name. And I'm like, oh, Daddy, everybody doing good. By the time we got ready to get off the phone, he tells me, have your mom, have Lynn call me. Have her call me. So I'm like, huh? So he was like, yeah, have her call me. I just want to talk to her. So I reach out to my mom and I said, Mom, I talked to Dad for some hours. He was talking good. He was sounding good, and everything. And he told me to have you reach out to him. So she does. At some point over the next couple of days, the two of them connect over the phone. They start to talk for hours as well. The original purpose, according to what I understand now, was he reached out to her to tell her, look, Lynn, I'm sick. I told Candy, but I think because of all of the stuff that has gone on over the years, she hears me, but she's not really understanding. I really want her to come to this tournament, and I really want to spend time with her. I want to see the kids. Like, I really need you to help me make this happen. And admittedly, I waved the white flag. I know you know our daughter better than I do. And so I need you to help me get through to her. So mom was like, Candy is stubborn. She's not a kid anymore, Eric. She's a grown woman, and so, she's the kind of person, she'll give you the shirt off her back. But then if you hurt her, that wall go up, and it's almost impossible to tear that wall down. She's very, and that's how she is. She don't mean no harm. She don't, but that's just kind of how she is. So the only way to get her to put that wall down is if you do what you say you're going to do, be consistent and all of that. And then over the course of time, she'll come around. Daddy's like, I ain't got that kind of time. I need you to help me get to her and to the kids. Long story short, best friends, time for the tournament. He's still talking to mama. At this point, they talking every day on the phone, girl. My mom hadn't retired yet from the hospital. So, girl, she got to get up. She got to be to work at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Girl, they up to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning cackling, talking about what happened in 83, girl. So they're still carrying on. And I think as I look back, she talked about how he said that he had real painful days and he was going through different things as it relates to his health. And I think they were an escape for each other. Or it was almost like getting in your car and going back down, to memory lane or into a time capsule or something. So she said, girl, they would talk and they would laugh and they would encourage each other and, all of the things, right? And so, she would tell him all the stuff about me and, just tell him all the stuff about the kids and what they were into. And she said, girl, I would send him pictures and just everything, right? Just, here's the grandkids doing this and here's Candy doing this and, all of the things, right? And so they really were there for each other. Well, here comes the tournament. We go to the tournament. Everything goes over without a hitch. While we're on the way to the tournament, he calls and I'm like, Dad, we ran into, we sitting at the railroad tracks. We're on our way. We run a few minutes late. We sitting at the railroad tracks. There's a train going by. We've been sitting here for the better part of 15, 20 minutes. But rest assured, we're going to be there. Girl, Daddy was like, okay. He hang up with me. I think in his mind, he thought I was ghosting him. He thought I was sending him off. Girl, he called mama and snapped and was like, where's Candy? Where are you at? What's going on? And she's like, calm down. I gave you my word. I called off work. I'm in the truck with them. It's Sean, Candy, and the kids and me. I'm all the way in the back seat. She got the 3-row truck. I'm all the way in the back seat. I said we were coming. We're coming. She's not lying. We're literally at the railroad tracks. Okay, he calms down. We get there. Everybody's having a good time. Now, Daddy was supposed to come and he was supposed to be here for the weekend. He drove up, right? So he gets in the car, which is not uncommon, girl. He would do this all the time. Girl, Daddy would pack some clothes for the weekend, get in the car, come to Illinois, go back to Tennessee like it was nothing, right? So Daddy was supposed to be here for the weekend. And the way I understand it, Monday morning, he was supposed to get in the car, drive back home to Tennessee, and, continue his week. So here comes Sunday. I believe it was Sunday. Here comes Sunday. Me, Sean, and the kids are sitting at my granny's house, my mom's mom. We sitting over there just cackling and talking and, doing the family thing where everybody sit around kind of on a Sunday and they ain't really doing nothing. They ain't talking about nothing. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call from my grandma, which is my dad's mom. She's frantic. Candy, have you talked to your daddy? No, ma'am, not today. So she tells me she's in Arizona with my cousin Brandon. Y'all know my cousin Brandon. He's in the comments often. Pastor Brandon Doris. She's in Arizona with him because, to my understanding, he had some stuff going on. I don't know if it was something at his church or something, but she was out there. Her, Aunt Lisa, all of them were out there in Arizona with Brandon. So she gets a call from somebody saying, Daddy had been rushed to the hospital. You know, we don't know what's going on. And she knew that really I'm the closest thing to where he is, but he wasn't in the hospital close by the house. He was in the hospital 3 hours south of us because remember, he was en route going back home to Tennessee. He stopped in the small town, Champaign, Illinois. He stopped in Champaign, Illinois to grab something to eat and have lunch with one of his cousins. He's got cousins there. So I guess they all went, got something to eat. They were eating, sitting around talking. He was supposed to eat, talk, hang out, and then get on the road to continue his journey. At some point in time, after they got the food, he started not feeling well. They rushed him to the hospital. Now he's in the hospital. My grandma gets the call in Arizona. She calls me, and I'm 3 hours away. So I tell her, I'm going to do what I can do. Let me check into it. I'll see if I can get him on the phone, figure out what's going on. And once I know more, I'll circle back around and I'll call you and give you an update. So I call his cell phone. No answer. Call his cell phone again. A young white girl pick up the phone. She's like, hello? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. I'm trying to reach my father. This is my dad's cell phone. Who are you and where are you at and what's going on? So she tells me, she's like, I don't know this man. I'm sitting here in the emergency room and he's very, very sick to the point where he's slouched down in the wheelchair. He's barely conscious, barely sitting up and cannot talk. I heard his phone ring and I grabbed it out of his pocket because I keep trying to get the nurses or the doctors or somebody, security. I keep trying to get somebody's attention and they're not helping him, but he is not doing well. So she sounded so scared. She's like, I'm waiting to be seen. He's waiting to be seen. It's other people waiting to be seen. And I don't know what's going on. I immediately start to panic. I said, okay, thank you so much. I said, stay close to him. Stay close to the phone. I'll call you back. First thing I could think to do was, I'm 3 hours away. Call the hospital, ask for the emergency room, and get the charge nurse on the line. I explained to the charge nurse what's going on, what has happened thus far, and I tell her we need immediate attention. Within minutes, they get him, rush him back. They're working on him. At this time, the young lady has put his phone on the stretcher with him, and I could hear all of the background noise. I could hear beeping. I could hear them trying to ask him questions. He can't respond, but he's like moaning, like he's in excruciating pain. I can hear background noise, but there's nothing else I can do. So at this point, I got one phone where I'm now on Sean's cell phone. I got one phone where I'm trying to talk to the nurse, get, more updates, and she rushing me off the phone. Then I got him on the phone where his phone, where I could hear the background noise, but he can't hear me. I don't think he can hear me. He definitely can't respond. So at some point in time, somebody in the room with him hangs the phone up. I call my grandma, who's in Arizona at this point. Grandma, I'm on my way down there. I don't know any more besides what I just shared with you. But I'm on my way down there. I'll figure out what's going on. And then once I have eyes on him and I know what's going on, we'll go from there. I go down there by myself. Best friends, when I say I'm scared of hospitals, if you know me, you know I don't do hospitals. So by the time I get down there, it's already dark. Okay? The hospital was dark. You know how they do the hospital where in the hallway and stuff, the lights be dim and you can only have visitors in case of emergency and stuff like this. Girl, it's dark, it's dim. I've never been to this hospital. I'm 3 hours from home. I'm by myself. But we going in Jesus' name, okay? So I get there. Daddy is in excruciating pain. The doctors are hitting me with all this information. We're upstairs in his room. They have him, I believe, on the intensive care unit. The reception is in and out. It's choppy. I'm calling my grandma. The line is dropping. I'm getting calls from family members. I can't get a signal. I now have to go down the hall by the waiting room in order to be able to get a signal. But then guess what? Daddy know that I'm here because he's conscious. He can talk a little bit, but he can't say a whole lot. But he did not want me to leave him in that room by himself. He kept saying, when you're not here, they're not nice to me. They don't respond to me. They don't answer the call like I'm in excruciating pain. I've never felt like this before. I'm like, Daddy, I'm not going nowhere. Like, I just need to call grandma and them, let them know that you okay, you know, and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The doctors come in and say, well, we need to do emergency surgery. Okay, we need to do emergency surgery. What are we going to do? So they do emergency surgery. I'm there. They tell me you can stay with him and walk down with him until we wheel him in. Then we're going to take you to this little waiting room. But the surgical unit is on the lowest level of the hospital in the basement. Now, I would imagine as big as the surgical unit is, girl, they probably be busing during the daytime. Girl, it probably be people or us during the daytime. This is emergency surgery. I'm down there by myself. This is a hospital where they have their lights on like a motion sensor. So I'm sitting here in this huge waiting room by myself. All I keep hearing is the helicopters because this is a trauma hospital. I hear the helicopters landing right outside the window. They bringing people in. Girl, the helicopters landing, bringing people in. But I'm taking phone call after phone call after phone call. I'm just looking around because in this open area, I'm looking at all these different entrances and exits because I'm trying to make sure, girl, don't nobody walk up on me. So all of a sudden, girl, I'm sitting in there, and the lights go dark just like that. I could have screamed, baby, you could have sold me. You could have sold me for a penny and got change back. Girl, I did everything short of scream. You hear me? So I jump up, and by me moving and stuff, the lights pop back on. Then all of a sudden I heard the door open and the doctor comes in to talk to me. Surgery, you know, whatever. And that started a chain of events that lasted for the better part of a month, give or take, right? I went home that next day, and by this time, my grandma has flown home. She did a quick turnaround trip. She's now home from Arizona. She's packing a bag because she's wanting me to take her back down to where Daddy is, 3 hours away. So I go get grandma. We go down there. She stays there by his side from that moment until he closed his eyes. He fought and fought and fought for the better part of a month. I watched him go through agonizing pain that increased by the day. I watched him have surgery after surgery after surgery, test after test after test, procedure after procedure after procedure. I watched him lose weight. I watched him fight. I could tell that he was in such pain that he was like visibly shaking to fight, to keep living. And every day when I would come see him, I would bust in the door, girl. Boom. I would bust in the door. And I would say, hey, Superman. And I would watch this 59-year-old veteran, Army veteran, stick his chest out and say, hey, baby girl, you know, and I would just come over to him and I would kiss him and hug him and just tell him that I love him. And I watched this happen over and over and over again, every day, right? And the only thing that changed was the date on the calendar, our clothes, but my grandmother never came home. She never came home. She never left him. She never left him. Never left him. And no matter what the doctor said, no matter what the nurses said, no matter what the news was, I remember they would come in and they would immediately go to Daddy. And they would start talking. And he would say, no, talk to my mom and talk to my daughter. This is my daughter. This is my mom. Talk to my daughter. Talk to my mom. And I just watched him put his entire trust in us. And we made the best decisions that we could based on the information that we had, based on the information that we knew. And as things progressed, my brothers came, my aunt and uncle came, which are his siblings. They never left. Family members from Tennessee came. I just watched everybody come. Everybody came. Everybody came. And everybody came. And the more people came, the more it got real. And Daddy took his last breath. And he passed away. And we ended up having like a small, intimate, viewing in Illinois. But Daddy was born and raised in Tennessee. So he had his funeral and the burial in Tennessee. But you got to remember, all of this happened the first part of the year, and we're still coming off of August. But the kicker is, nobody knew what happened outside of like immediate family of mine that had to know. So all those days that Daddy was in the hospital, I was going back and forth some days because I didn't have money for hotel. Or we would be standing in the lobby. I would be standing in the lobby at the hotel, and I would give my card and pray that my account was not overdrawn so that I could just stay, so that I could be there for him the next day. When I say the stress of going through 2 storms simultaneously was almost more than I could handle, it was a lot. It was a lot. Even having to prepare for all of us to go to Tennessee, I'm thinking, okay, we got to get on the road. We got to eat while we out of town. We needed to get an Airbnb or a hotel room. After I got through researching, it made sense to get an Airbnb. It was just so many things. I think we were running a raffle at that time. I had designed bags that I had put my blood, sweat, and tears in. And I had to raffle off those bags in order to make everything happen. Because Sean needed something to wear to the services. I needed something to wear. We had to get hair done. The kids needed something to wear. All of this, right? And one thing I don't believe in doing is begging. And no matter how bad things got, I always look for any kind of way for us to be able to get over it, over the hump. But then comes those things that money can't buy. The vision that I had when I created those bags, I had a vision for that, and I had a dream for what I wanted to do with those bags. So to have to raffle off the prototype of those bags, it hurt, right? To be sitting at the funeral home and they say, hey, we have this jewelry that we designed, and you could take, your loved one's fingerprint, and you could have a ring made or necklace or, all of these different things. I just wanted something to still connect me to my father, and wasn't able to do it. You guys seen the story that, Sean shared, or we shared for my birthday, because that is the story or the backstory on why Sean bought me the dog tags, not this one, but the dog tags that she gave me for my birthday. So those were those silent storms in the background, and we were still fighting, So then comes the services, right? We go, we're there for a few days. Everything is in and as it should be. And we come home. And I just remember coming downstairs and just sitting there, just praying, thanking God that everything worked out the way it was supposed to, sitting in the reality that I now have one parent instead of two, and just starting, I guess, the grieving process, right? And I remember just wondering, like, what is my lesson? What is it that I'm supposed to take from this season? This is a lot, right? And I remember just feeling like, as I look back on that season, I remember my then best friend being there as well. We don't talk anymore. Please don't say her name in the comments. And please don't start asking questions. I remember my then best friend flying in to be there for me during my dad's services and supporting me, during that process. I remember Sean being there as best she could. And I remember other people that I have been friends with for years that I would have expected to at least get a phone call from, and never really hearing much besides getting a text saying, I'm praying for you. But as you go through different things in life, you never forget who was there during some of the worst times of your life. But the thing about a storm, and the thing about when Pandora's box is open and life happens, on one hand, you never forget who was there. But on another hand, you don't forget who wasn't there. And you start to, or at least I started to, compartmentalize people. I was extremely grateful for those that was there. And if I'm honest and if I'm transparent, I probably received more love and support and encouragement from you guys, the best friends on social media, than I did from people that I have been friends with since college or before. And you sit in that, right? You sit in that. And so it was one of those situations where I kind of pulled back from some friendships. I pulled some people closer. And even the friendships that kind of dissolved thereafter this whole season, I could still look and say I'm grateful for, how certain individuals showed up for me. But no matter what you go through in life, I think my biggest takeaway is there are always lessons and things to be grateful for. I think I also recognized in that season that, nobody's perfect. And it wasn't until the very end that I gave my father the opportunity to have a good relationship with the twins. I was so guarded and so protective of them that I didn't want it to be a situation where he was in and out of their lives, or there was inconsistency where they'd be looking for him and we didn't, whatever, right? So I made a very difficult decision, and I regret that decision. I didn't make the best decision, but we make decisions according to what we know when we know it. And so there were a lot of takeaways in that season. But we promised to tell you guys everything that happened. And baby, that was the storm after August.